Colosseum, also known as the Flavian Amphitheater, is perhaps the most famous ancient landmark in the world. For more than 2,000 years, the 50-meter high and 200 meters long structure still stands still in the center of Rome. It was, and still is, one of the most complex and magnificent structures of all time. It is one of the top 10 wonders of the world and is indeed the greatest symbol of the mighty Roman Empire. Today, this marvel arena has become so incredibly well known that everyone would want to step into the Colosseum once more to experience what it was like 2,000 years ago. Italy, officially known as the Italian Republic, is a very beautiful country located in southern Europe. The capital city, Rome, is one of the most historical cities ever, as it is filled with stories, myths, and histories. Today, we're going to talk about the Colosseum, which is located right in the middle of Rome.
Before talking about the Colosseum, let's talk a little bit about the story behind the idea of the Colosseum. Rome, as we all know, is one of the biggest and richest cities of its time. It is so powerful that it owns all the engineers, science, and gold. But at the 68 AD, Emperor of the time, Emperor Nero, was corrupted. Using everything, he built a palace covered in gold, and even a statue of himself. The senators were so mad and they wanted him dead. And to spare himself from all this embarrassment, he committed suicide. And so, Emperor Vespasian took over, and he was kind of a nice guy. And in order to repay all the loyal citizens, he actually came up with the idea of the Colosseum. So now we know who actually came up with the idea of the Colosseum. At the meantime, the Romans were actually at war with the Jewish. Using every man and child, they were trying so hard to eliminate Jerusalem. They took every treasure they could get from the Jewish temple and captured 12,000 Jewish to work for them. At AD 72, the Romans won the war. Without wasting much time, they used the resources they had to start building Colosseum. So now we know about the story behind it, let's talk about how it's made. According to National Geographic, the Colosseum was formed by joining two Greek amphitheaters back to back to form a 360-degree theater. This theater is the first building to have staircases at a time, connected to each other. Fascinating, isn't it? But this is just a small part of it.
The Emperor Vespasian decided to build an amphitheater which could seat up to 50,000 spectators. But the only suitable area for this project was filled with an ornamental lake, which belonged to the Emperor Nero. Without any choices, they have to drain the area and lay a foundation of concrete over the bed of Nero's lake, which is almost impossible during the time. But as people say, the Greeks are famous for their brains, while the Romans are for their draining system. They were able to get the job done by building a draining system around the lake and underneath, 6 meters underneath the structure. They drain the lake and funnel all of the waters into the Tiber River, which is located a kilometer away.
The amphitheater must be big and strong enough to hold around 60,000 people without collapsing under its own weight. The most important key in achieving that is the arch. The arch is almost the perfect design for bearing heavy weight, and the design is so simple. It is a shape of semicircular form supported by two pillars on each side. The weight of the building is absorbed by the center point of the arch and scattered down evenly to both sides of the pillars. This allowed the pillars to bury heavy loads, and because the space between pillars is empty, this reduces the weight of the building even further. The Colosseum is really nothing but arches. Even though the Colosseum was complete, but they still faced a major problem, which is the weather. The top of the theater had no roof, and it could be suffering to watch the match under the heat of the sun. So the engineer had to think of a solution, and then they decided to cover the theater with sails, which called the layering, and a series of posts like sharp masses protrude up at the top of the amphitheater wall in order to allow the sails to be fastened in place.
But the sad thing was, just a year before the completion of this magnificent structure, Emperor Vespasian passed away. And so his son and successor Titus took over as emperor. He held the opening ceremony of this magnificent structure, and surprisingly, more than 100 days people have been coming to enjoy the show. Oh, and not to forget, the Colosseum was built just for entertainment. You may be wondering, what kind of shows would there be? Well, rumors has it that it's all about killing and slaughtering. Indeed it is. The people only need to match the numbers on the tickets with the numbers on the corridor to get their way up to their respective seats to enjoy the killing, slaughtering and torturing. Besides, sea battles were actually carried out by simply filling water into the Colosseum and bringing in a few ships. Fascinating, right? To build such a fascinating building, you must be thinking, what kind of materials are used?
Oh hi! You guys may know me from the start of the video. I'm Austin Park, and today I'm gonna take you on an adventure to discover the materials used for this magnificent building known as the Colosseum. Now, there are several materials being used for this magnificent building. For example, travertine. Now, what is travertine, you may ask? Travertine is a type of limestone. The Romans called it lapis tibertinus. Travertine is a sedimentary stone. From now, where can you find travertine? We can find it anywhere now actually. Even the tiles in our house are actually travertine. Now, the travertine used for the Colosseum were quarried, or to be exact, extracted from a stone, from a town known as Tiber, currently also known as Tripoli. It is a town about 20 km from Rome. Now, after all this description, what were the travertine being used for in the Colosseum, you may ask? Well, the answer would be that the main pillars of the Colosseum, the ground floor of the Colosseum, and of course, the external wall of the Colosseum. Now that I've talked about travertine, I would like to talk to you about tiles and bricks. Tiles and bricks were also being produced in those days. They were produced by mixing clay with water, and often with straw, sand, and finely ground pozzolan. They would use their hand to press the mixture into a wooden mold, and after that, they would dry the mixture under the sun. Usually, they would turn the mixture around just to avoid the tiles from being bended. After that, they will put the mixture into an oven, just like how they would bake a pizza, but at a temperature of 800 degrees Celsius. They will produce the tiles in standard sizes and they will often use them for roofs. The leftover of the mixture, they will use them to make bricks. These bricks will be used to make wall structures, roofings, and as fillings. Do you see this? This is concrete. Now why am I introducing this? Basically in those days, they produced a material called Roman concrete. Now, what makes this concrete so special? Before I further talk about that, I would like to introduce a binding agent known as lime. Lime is obtained by heating up limestone, which contains carbon, oxygen, and of course, calcium. How do they get the lime? They will put the limestone in a kiln, which is a thermally insulated chamber. They will heat the limestone there just to obtain the lime. Now that we are done talking about lime, I'm going to go into further details on Roman cement. Now, there are two distinct types of cement mortar, or more accurately, concrete mortar. One was made by mixing river sand and simple lime with a ratio of 3 parts sand and 1 part lime. The other will be made with pozzolana. Basically, by mixing it with pozzolana, they will mix it by a ratio of 2 parts pozzolana and 1 part lime. Now, by looking at this, it is quite simple which are more superior, pozzolana cement. Now that I have talked about Roman cement, I would like to bring your attention to one of the ingredients used to make this Roman cement, which is known as pozzolana. Pozzolana is a kind of volcanic ash. It can be found in volcanic region, obviously. You can find this in the Pozzoli region at the base of Naples. Vitruvius, an architect and also an engineer for the Emperor Augustus, stated that there is a powder that could produce astonishing results. This substance, when mixed with lime and rubber, can set height to the buildings or any kinds. Even if the piers were constructed underwater, it would set height under the sea. Sounds astonishing, doesn't it? This substance mentioned by Vitruvius is volcanic ash. Now, what makes this volcanic ash so different from other ingredients? This is because volcanic ash has already been heated up by volcano. Thus, when you want to make concrete, you will mix volcanic ash with lime without even having to heat it up again. And thus, I conclude that I have finished the materials used to construct this magnificent building known as the Colosseum.
Let's put it this way. In the morning, it will be the battle between gladiators and prisoners. And for your information, gladiators are people who basically entertain the crowd in Roman Republic, something like that. Oh, and in the afternoon, it will be the combat between animals. Sometimes they have leopards, lions, tigers, and gladiators. While at the evening, before the sun goes down, it will be the slaughtering of the prisoners. Oh yeah, and not forgetting, the Colosseum is filled with beautiful ornaments. Ornaments are, ornaments. the Colosseum, the largest amphitheater in Rome, as it can fit 60,000 of spectators at one time. The architect, Vespasian, and his son, Titus, wants the Colosseum to be very attractive and also be the symbol of pride of the people of Rome. So they use large amount of ornamental stones for the exterior of the building, so it looked more attractive. What material they use? They use limestone and marble as their main material for the whole building, and also concrete, bricks, and other type of stones as the supportive material for the ornamental decoration. Not to mention, arches and columns are the great inventions of Rome. They invented this great piece of architecture that we're still using it nowadays. Talking about arches, it's great because it can bear a very large weight of the architecture. And you're not gonna believe this. If there is a statues of God or divinities in each of the empty arches, that's incredible. And talking about columns are still very popular nowadays, that rich people are still using it as the part of their houses.
There is three types of column that use in this great piece of architecture, which is the Doric column, Ionic column, and Corinthian columns. They separate the columns by each of the floor, which is the Doric column used at the first floor, the Ionic column used at the second floor, and Corinthian column used at the third floor. There is also a T-pilaster on the top of the building. Let's talk about the column. The Doric column, the most basic looking column among all, and it has the simplest design, but it looks powerful. Ionic column, the column at the second floor, which is slightly fancier compared to the Doric column. It started to have the capital, which is the top of the shaft, and the base, the bottom of the shaft. And the base looked like there's a ring stacking accordingly, and it's actually taller compared to Doric column. And they also apply a technique called entasis, E-N-T-A-S-I-S, which is a little bulge in the column, which make the columns look more straight and slender. How it look actually, but it's actually, when we see building at eye level, this little bulge makes the columns look more narrower and slender, as but actually it doesn't. And yeah. And then lastly, the Corinthian columns, which is the most fanciest, the fanciest column among all. It's, how to say it has the fanciest design among all the columns, because at the capital, at the top of the shaft, top of the columns, it certainly have decorations such as flowers, leaves, sometimes, very sometimes, there's a statues of gods on top. Other than that, it also seems larger compared to the Ionic column and the Doric column. Even nowadays, people are still using Corinthian columns and apply to their houses, such as bungalow and offices everywhere. Yeah, so thank you.